Hello! Today I'm going to show you some do-it-yourself stained glass stone elephants. These are little window hanging decorations. As an Amazon affiliate, I do earn a commission on qualifying purchases, but no additional cost to you. But that's why in the detailed area, I will talk about some of the supplies I use in case you need help finding them. So first of all, I draw out the shape of my elephant, or it could be a different shape you want. And then I use 14 gauge bare copper dead soft wire to form the outside of my art. So the dead soft is nice because it's very bendable, and I use pliers in my hands and whatever I have on hand to get the right shape. And then I'm also using some thumbtack push pin things to hold it in place while I am making the shape. So you're going to have some kind of board that you can push your thumbtacks into. And I do have a video talking about how you can make a good board to work on. Now, if you use stainless steel push pins, you will have less of a problem with them getting old. Like if they're not stainless steel, they'll rust. I just like to start off with stainless steel ones. So now you have a bunch of elephants all done. That elephant that I was showing you was actually a fancier elephant from a different project, but it's the same idea. So these little elephants have all been formed, and I have little tails that are separate. Now I'm going to foil a whole bunch of stones, and I'm going to cut my foil down to about 1 millimeter wide. So these are some little glass stones, and then I also have some real stones of different colors, and I foiled around each one, and I do have a video on how to foil small objects which talks about this. But you want to have the foil to be pretty thin so that it doesn't take over your whole artwork. You want to be able to see most of the stone. So these are actual natural stones that I'm using for this particular elephant. They're all different amber type colors. And I usually like to do like a whole mass of stones or a whole mass of glass or whatever you're going to do, so that when I get around to wanting to use them in a project, I can then pick and choose. Because as you can see, you're going to have to spend some time figuring out which stone goes where to make the project look the way you want it to. Now, because eventually the copper is going to be covered with solder, and it could be patinaed or whatever you do with it after that, you want to try to arrange the stones so that any interior lines that you've created, like the ears, still show up. So you want to like make an array of stones wrapped around an ear or something, because you want to continue that line that you've made. And once you do fill it with solder, you will lose some of that detail that you created. Anyways, you'll catch on. So I'm using flux. I usually use a gel flux because it does tend to not flow a lot like a liquid flux would do, that just kind of washes it. But for like this project, I did mix a little bit of the pure liquid flux into the gel flux so that it did flow a little bit more freely. I use a 60-40-10 lead solder, and I have some of that listed also. So right now I am just very quickly trying to tack the stones in place. Now you do not want to heat up the foil on this type of project very much, because the foil, as I showed you, you're using a very thin line of foil to stick, um, to wrap around the stone and to solder to. So if you heat it up a lot, and that eye also has a very thin um, line of copper foil around it. So when you're working on a project like this that has really thinly foiled objects, you'll be better off skipping around on your project. Don't heat up one area a lot, um, because the heat will make the adhesion of the copper foil just kind of release, and then your stone will just pop out. And that does happen, even with the best intentions. The copper foil will tend to release at times. So for something like this, when you're using a very thin line of foil, don't use the cheapest foil that you can find, because you want that stickiness to really adhere. Now, basically what you're doing is putting most of the heat on the wire of the outside, and it kind of like will just kind of blend into and wrap around the stones. And then I am filling in any extra gaps that I have with solder. I am working on a silicone mat, which is a nice thing to work on because it will not heat up too much. So you're not going to like burn your surface that you're working on, and it'll also clean up very easily. That yellow thing up in the top right hand corner is my fume exhauster, which I use. And I actually have taken my fume exhauster and attached a regular dryer hose to it, where the end of it is, so that, and put that dryer hose outside the outside world, so that I don't have to breathe in any of the fumes after it sucks them away from where I'm working. Now make sure you always turn your project over and solder the bottom side. Now this is especially important for when you use either stones or crystals or anything that you're going to just have very thin lines of solder on them. You really need to utilize any possibility of soldering. So, if there's any copper that's on the back that hasn't been soldered to, you want to make sure you take advantage of that. Also, doing this back soldering thing makes it look better, because when you hang something in the window, which is where this is going to eventually be, the back might still show. I mean, someone on the other side is going to, one side of the window will be facing inside and one will be outside, and you want both sides to look good, right? So you want to be able to do that. So here I am again, starting off with a new elephant, and I just made a whole bunch of different tails and then just attached the tail to it. Sometimes I attached the tail back to the actual elephant itself, and sometimes I just had them loose. They seem to work fine either way. And I did decide that each of these elephants that I'm doing, I did a total of 6 of them, is going to have a different color scheme type of stone. So they're natural stones that I'm using, and they're all in slightly different colors. So this is kind of a gray, green, and white elephant. So it looks like for this one, I just had some stones that seemed to fit great, and I just soldered them in before I figured out the rest of the stones. So whatever works for you. You can lay all the stones out to begin with, or you can do them one at a time. But that's why it's really nice to have a big pile of different stones, so that whichever way you decide to do it, you have a big selection. You don't want to start doing a project like this and then say, oh, well, I don't have any stones that are going to work because they're all too big, or they're all too wide, or whatever. You want to be able to find the one that will fit just right. Now, you may at times have to adjust your wire shape a little bit in order to use that stone that's just so perfect. But that's up to you. The flatter you can get the wire to sit, the easier it's going to be to get the stones to solder. Now I'm going to continue with all the other units, meaning all the other elephants that I want to do. So as I said, I had 6 of them. This particular one, I'm using, I think they're glass. They don't look like real stones. They look like they're glass, but I wanted a little bit different color. So this one is red, and looks like I kind of ran out of stones for a while, so I had to go do some more. So it was kind of done in 2 different stages. Now, when you are foiling things like glass or stones, you'll want to try to foil them in a way that they're as flat as possible, with the foil going around horizontally to the plane of like a flat table. Because most of the time, you're going to want to lay your stones on a surface like I'm doing right now, and you'd like to have all the foil parts line up together. And yes, you're saving time, that you're not cutting pieces of glass for a project like this. You know, you're using things that you've already foiled, but the actual foiling time is it's going to take you at least a couple minutes per little stone. So that, adds up. And it's going to take you a while to lay out your design after you do get started. Now, as you can see, that elephant on the bottom right corner there in the screen, that guy has a lot bigger stones. And so what I did was, like the trunk and the tail, at times I couldn't find the right size stones, even when I looked through my huge bag of stones. So there'll be areas that are just filled with solder. And if that works in your project, then go for it. If not, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. Now, you could use normal flat stained glass and cut shapes and try to make them blend into the stones that you're using. So that would be maybe a way that you could prevent just filling in the gaps that you just don't have the right size stone for. Now, because you're soldering to a thin line of foil, it really doesn't take very much heat to make the connection. So as long as the solder has been liquefied and heated up enough to make it into a liquid, it will just adhere fine. You're then going to want to thoroughly clean these little elephants. So you're going to want to scrub them. You're going to want to use some kind of soap and water. These ended up looking kind of dull. These actually, I had them for quite a number of months before I went any farther than the cleaning. Now, if you use mineral or linseed oil, you can use that to polish the solder. And this is, I really needed to do something to this solder because, as I said, they were sitting around for a number of months before I decided to finish this project. So I put the oil on. Oops, see, that's what happens. They sometimes fall out. Now that little stone that just fell out, I'm going to have to clean it absolutely thoroughly. I'm going to have to refoil it and resolder it on because it obviously fell out. And now I'm cleaning and polishing some more. Now this the oil I'm going to let sit on the elephants for a while to kind of soak in to the solder, and then I'm going to wipe them clean. Now another thing I have done, kind of a cheating, is if a stone falls out like that, I have at times just super glued it back in. So, you know, that's an option. I wouldn't want to do that to a very big piece, but for a very small stone, that might be a good option. Because obviously, if you were going to solder, you would have to also clean all this oil and every residue off of your elephant before you can solder something to it. So yeah, it's kind of a pain to have it fall apart after you think you're all done, but that's kind of life. So that's a little green guy. So you can use, you know, special polishing rags. I like to use an old toothbrush to kind of scrub in to make sure that I get everything off that I can. And this is one that's, I'm not polishing this with special patinas or anything like that. I'm just using the basic solder color as a finished look for these little guys. And now you just need to hang them up and enjoy them. I have gotten these suction things for windows. You can use that to hang them up. You can also just put a chain on them, you know, whatever way you want to hang them up. They're kind of just a little fun decoration. And of course, you don't have to make elephants. There's a whole world of shapes out there. It's just a fun way to make a variety of something you love. And these are small little projects. I gave them to my daughter, and she appreciates them. And thanks for watching. I hope this inspires you to make some creations of your own. Thank you.